Deadeye on all the latest Overwatch League news, information, and esports analysis. I am your host, Emily Drunk, and tonight on episode 67, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch League and get primed for Overwatch League 2019 Stage 1 Week 1 as opening week is finally here. But before we can do that and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is hanging out with us tonight for our live show on Twitch. And of course, thank all of our repeat listeners. Joining me tonight, we have both of my co-hosts. Up first, back from the audio biz and all of the tech woes. He's finally back, my soulmate Slambo. Slambo, it's been a while. We've been out, have some ups and downs, but how are you doing tonight now that you were back in full swing, my friend?
Oh, what's up, nerd? And yes, my friend, yes, it is so good to be back. Tech issues fixed, and not a more perfect opportunity to have that all working and in order than to be back for this episode. Because you know what? Opening week is just around the corner. The hype feels real. Little bit of spoiler alert, but I definitely thought my hype would be a little bit satiated this weekend. It was not. it was not. So I definitely still feel like I'm very much wanting the start of the season to happen. So we do have that official moment where it feels like Overwatch League is back. Teams are trying hard. There's sweat. There's tears. There's hopefully a little bit of blood in the dugouts. I don't know. I'm looking forward to a lot of drama this year, obviously, but it is a perfect week to be back. As I said, we have a lot to talk about, so I'll just shut up so we can move on and get to the business.
Yeah, imagine that. We have a ton of news this week, just ahead of the season start. Weird. And who would have thought? Like we had some last minute tank swaps with some coaching changes, but we'll get into that in just a little bit. Also joining us tonight is my co-host Spider. Spider, how's this past week been treating you?
Pretty good. I mean, last weekend was my birthday, so I, did the birthday stuff with the family. We had what?
I just saying woo.
What is that? Like that's like such a half-ass woo. Like
I was expecting Slambo to just drown me out.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
He did it.
Yeah. you were like really counting on him to carry you there, and it's not going to happen.
That's usual.
So my birthday was last weekend. Blah blah blah, all that stuff. But Overwatch, man. I mean, we got the community countdown, which I have strong feelings for, and it sounds like Slambo and I might be on the same page with it. And it's still going on. And tonight's event was a little more fun. I did enjoy it. If you haven't seen it, I'd definitely go watch. What has already been played. But beyond that, playing Apex like pretty much the rest of the world. It's top of the world right now. It's number one on Twitch. It's the top viewed game, and I would like to hope to think Overwatch League is going to overtake that. And I think it will for the short term, but we'll see how it shakes out in the long term. But it was a fun weekend. So what about you, man? How was your time off? I heard you were a little sick over the weekend.
Yeah, I've been dealing with the flu, and I still cannot hear out of my right ear at all because there's just too much pressure there, and it's just not coming undone. So yeah, that's fantastic. But I have been playing a little bit of Kingdom Hearts 3. I just got to the Monsters Inc. world, which I'm super excited about, so I've been enjoying that. But we're not here to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. We're here to talk about the Overwatch League. We got a lot to cover tonight, so let's go ahead and jump right into the thick of things. So first up, we do have an update for the coaching staff of the Los Angeles Valiant, who have added 2 additional coaches to their coaching staff. So they went out and they picked up Pac-10 and Don Su, and both will serve as assistant coaches in the 2019 season. Now, Pac-10 most recently coached the Contenders EU team Angry Titans back in the 2018 Contenders Season 2. Their Angry Titans would go undefeated during their group stage before losing to the eventual champions in the grand finals, which was, of course, Eagle Gaming. Now, Donsu previously had tanked for Conbox. That was going all the way back to 2017, quite some time. And then he eventually transitioned to a coaching role. There he would coach World GameStar H2 during Contenders Korea Season 1 and 2. And if you're not familiar with them, that was a team that is now competing under the WGS Armament name. So these two are basically just going to be replacing the two coaches that have left the franchise during the offseason. We saw Damon leave the Valiant to become the head coach of the Paris Eternal, as well as Gunba, who is now an assistant coach for Boston Uprising, and I'm sure he's going to have his hands full dealing with their contenders level DPS. But these two are going to be working alongside Stoop as assistant coaches, and of course, they'll be coaching underneath the guidance of Moon, who is the team's head coach.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed the big parts. This is basically just them replacing the members that they lost in the offseason. Packing 10 is a huge pickup for this team, and it's, when we talk about the Valiant, I think is one of the more underrated teams because they were a consistently good team. They were kind of not good enough to be like, oh, they're NYXL or oh, they're London, but they were consistently, in the top 5. So I feel like with the coaching changes and what they made in the offseason, I think they could get back up there. And that was reflected in our power rankings. Like every time I talked about them, I was like, this team could go pretty much any way they want, possibly can. Like this is one of the few teams that I think really has the possibility to either be a number 2 team or a number 12 team. So I'm excited to see that they replaced, the coaches that they had in the offseason. And Moon, I think he doesn't get enough credit as a head coach. So I think this whole coaching staff just needs, a little heads up.
No, I think the more you bolster this coaching staff, the better. I think everyone's in agreement that this roster, just kind of from a pure talent perspective, it can really go toe-to-toe with most rosters in the league. I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's the best one by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely is in the discussion for top, 3, top 5 range for just pure talent. So I feel like a coaching addition definitely makes more of an impact on a team with a lot of talent. It just needs to be the right coach. So clearly there's been a long thought process to sign a coach this late, right before the start of the season, to feel that there's a purpose and a confidence in making that signing. And so, I don't know. I think this definitely will have a great ripple effect for Valiant in the long term, but it really does come from the top down. It truly does start and end with Moon. And I frankly think that, you add this same coach to 10, 12 other teams in the league, and it just doesn't have the same impact. I just think that's a general statement for just any team with top talent and any type of coaching synergy. But that, again, it's just a fall off when pure talent gets out of the mix. But I think that's pretty much, all there really is to say. I mean, you guys talked about pretty much everything else, and this team is we'll see. I mean, I guess it's not going to have a huge effect week 1, but as the stage progresses, we're going to see if this team still remains within the top 5, top 6 in contention to be one of the top teams at the end of the whole season.
I'd rather be adding players than losing players, at least. Players are coaches.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that staff or players. Yeah, either way, going up is a little better for the end of the. Someone's getting cut at the end. That means there's turmoil and dismay.
Absolutely. So we did have some pretty major news drop in out of the Shanghai Dragons camp here on Friday night, and they took to Twitter to announce that their main tank player, Fearless, has reached out to the team for permission to recuperate back home in Korea. Now, Fearless noted that this was due to his current health condition, as it was difficult for him to keep up with the team's training schedule. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask it right now. Have the Dragons been practicing 14 hours a day like they were in Season 1? Is that what the issue is right now?
Something. Go ahead, Slambo. I have feelings on this.
No, I mean, I guess we're probably on the same page. It's really no surprise. So, I mean, there's, nothing earth-shattering I'm gonna say. Is this deja vu? Is this happening again? I don't understand how. I remember during the backlash of the first time there was accusations of practices being a little too aggressive, the schedule being a bit too aggressive, And then there was like these videos they made to show like, well, look at all the things we do for the players' well-being. So there was like this response to it from the organization, and yet still there's players like having like fallout and being like, I need a break, or it was rigorous. It's just, I can't believe it's still like, I don't know how you're even putting yourself in that position to still have that MO against you. It's just, it seems reckless by the Shanghai organization. And so, yeah, I mean, what else is there to say? It's stupid.
You remember in our power rankings when everybody's like, what Chengdu Panthera, and I said, I trust the roster, but I don't trust the organization. This is exactly why I didn't trust the organization. Like this is just screams bad management. Like they haven't had a single game on stage in season 2 yet, and their tank already affect his way out of there. So, this does not. Yes, I used it as a verb.
That's your team. How dare you? But that's amazing.
I'll allow it.
Who else is going to use it? It's our team. So, but yeah, I mean, this is what I was afraid of. So this does not bode well because they don't have a backup tank on the roster, like a backup main tank on the roster. That was like the one, role that they didn't bring over from Shang through Drank Para or whatever we call them now. So, this does not bode well. Like, I still think they can win games, but they are nowhere near like the Kongdu Panthera level that we are expecting.
I love it. I'm gonna start calling it like shampooed Dandrifera or something. I'm gonna start really ruining it on purpose for everybody else. So no, sorry, but yeah, Totem, I know that we're kind of hogging it here, but I do feel like in hindsight, maybe letting go of all the tank talent they had. I mean, talent in air quotes. Let's not be too disrespectful here, but between MG and Roshan. I feel like maybe there was an opportunity to keep somebody on there for a backup. I mean, we're going to talk about a team here very shortly who moved a player into a backup role that kind of made sense for those niche roles. Anyway, moving forward. Sorry.
All right, well, we're not quite moving forward. I just do want to bring up the fact that in Season 1, we did see Kaguri do some main taking on the Orisa, and this was usually with like the high ground defenses. So they have a few options. So either Kaguri moves some main take momentarily until we see Fearless make his trip back, or potentially maybe we'll see Guardian take main take. Who knows? But there is someone else on the roster that has played main tank in the past, and that is Yunjin, who was a main tank originally when he was just Jin, and that was when he was on WNV Korea. Now, here's the thing about that, though. This was well over a year ago, so I don't know if that's the best person to put in that role. But if we're talking about overall playtime on that role, regardless of what's being done during streams, he might be the best bet for the Dragons, at least in the short term, moving forward.
Yeah, we'll see. I was really pumped for their matches this week, and now I am decidedly less pumped. It's basically back to season 1, like levels of hype, like stage 2, season 1, where you're basically like, they're not good. And not even stage 4 where you're like, they're not good, but boy, I'm going to root for them because they're not good. It's just kind of sad.
I am the complete opposite. I was not looking forward to their matches, and I now am looking forward to the matches to see how this chaos will ensue and who's going to end up juggling the tank role with their main role.
I knew
the S word show continues. Saved you a beep or something there. So
yeah, I knew we were going to get some like tank move Ryujie Kong level of swaps at some point during the season,
yes,
but I didn't think it would come like right away.
Not like this. Yeah,
day one.
Okay.
Not like this, man. Not like this.
Yes.
Feels bad. And in before, all the 0-28 spam in the Twitch chat, both in ours and in the Overwatch League chat, what's going to happen.
I'll start it, so let's go.
Okay, thanks. Okay, 0-28 from Slambo. Perfect. We'll throw that up on screen. Woo, there we go. Perfect. All right. Moving on. So, season 2 starts on Thursday, and we do know that we have some new faces that are going to be gracing us with their presence on the talent team. So, on the desk this year, we have Puckett, Malik Forte, Sideshow, Bren, and Zoe. And then for casters, we have all the returning duos. We got Monte Cristo and Doa. We got Uber and Mr. X. Semler and Hexagrams, and then we got a pretty pog sign, and we have the Contenders Korea casters, Wolf and Achilleos, and I cannot believe they actually got this. So this marks Wolf's return to the US for the first time in over 8 years, and this is a caster duo that has been entrenched in the Korean Overwatch scene, dating all the way back to Apex, which really was the pinnacle of, Overwatch competitive play before, the league went underway. And outside of that, we also got some new league insiders. We got 3 new people. We got Danny Lim, who will serve as a Korean translator. We have Emily Tane, who will be a Chinese translator. And we will have Mika Burton, who had hosted Contenders NA Season 2. She'll also be doing post-game interviews. So basically, with this, they kind of cut out the middleman, so we're not going to have 14 different translations going on before we actually get the English part brought back to the broadcast. So I'm happy for that.
No, I mean the big one is Wolf and Achilleos. You nailed it. They were such a great duo in Contenders Korea, all the way back to Apex. They've been probably the most consistent casters outside of probably ZP when he was with Hexagrams that deserved this role. And ZP's been very active on the Reddit. They're like, why were you passed up for this? You've been doing this. And he straight up said, I just, it wasn't until Avast really started hitting it off with me that I had a good partner in crime. He's like, I loved casting with Jake. Everybody thought him and Jake did a great job, but he's like, obviously I can't cast with Jake when he's playing in the match. So I feel like ZP and Avast will be the next ones to come up. But now I'm curious to see who they're going to move over to Korea. Because like you said, Wolf and Achilleos have been in Korean for so long that it's almost okay, well, now who do we get? And the rest of the pickups were great. I do want to mention that outside of this, there was, some reinforced talk. And he will be involved in some capacity Thursday, but he hasn't said what. So we're curious to see what that is. There's been all kinds of jokes okay, well maybe he's working in the merch store. It's Washington Justice merch for Reinforce, stuff like that. So, but we will see Reinforce in some capacity Thursday. But other than that, this is all great news. I think they did what they needed to do.
Maybe we'll see him play for Shanghai on Thursday. You never know. Crazier things have happened.
But if you guys did see that the Gladiators Twitter did drop a little pin emoji, the sign. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying I'm not going to close that door on Reinforce not playing tank for the Gladiators. I'm not going to close it, but I'm not necessarily going to leave it all the way open. I'm just going to leave that little crack right there. Leaving it right there.
I don't think you can do that to my boy Panker or Roar for that matter.
I'm just saying, little help there. I just want to see Johnny back in the league, baby.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the most phenomenal debate. The fact that they've been, if that happened and they kept that secret, it would be amazing. I would almost have to buy something Gladiators at that point just to support Reinforce.
Just get a Reinforce jersey. It's like a Seagull play.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Gonna sell jerseys with that name on the purple.
Yep, exactly.
I love it. Well, outside of that, we also had a pretty massive sponsorship deal coming through for the Overwatch League, and they have announced a flagship sponsorship with Coca-Cola, and this was on Friday. So the drink will become the official non-alcoholic beverage of the Overwatch League and all the other Overwatch properties. So this is a multi-year pact that gives Coke exclusivity with all 20 Overwatch League teams, Overwatch Contenders, Open Division, World Cup, and the annual BlizzCon, and also collegiate events. So we're still waiting on details in regards to how the brand is going to be promoted during the Overwatch League. So we're expecting details on that in the upcoming weeks. But this is not Coca-Cola's first venture into esports, because we do know that in the past it worked with League of Legends back in 2016. They were also one of the featured sponsors in EA's FIFA 2018 as well as 2019. So we've seen these pretty big sponsorships coming out of the Overwatch League dating, back to the inaugural season. Where would you rank the Coca-Cola sponsorship compared to, say, like Toyota or the Sour Patch Kids one?
Number one, I mean, come on, it's Coca-Cola. Like that, when you have somebody as big as Coca-Cola land a sponsorship for whatever you're doing, you can basically say, okay, we made it. Like this is legitimate now. And with our coming news, I think we have more, evidence that Overwatch League is in the mainstream now. But this is huge. Like the only thing is who will be the first alcoholic sponsor. And I went up in the air, and I think it's gonna be Hennessy. I think they're just gonna do it. They're just gonna do it out of nowhere. Like it's not something that people really think about, but I'd personally prefer like a different whiskey, but whatever. It's huge. It's huge.
At first, I was like waiting for like some like really profound idea from Spider about who was going to be the first alcoholic sponsor, and I was just like, Hennessy. Like, did not land. I did not feel. I was not expecting that.
I had to go off the wall because if I said like it's going to be Bud Light, like okay,
okay,
like,
I have a tinfoil hat theory, real quick.
Okay, let's hear this.
Jack Daniels is going to completely rebrand to Jake Daniels, and Jake will be the new sponsor.
All right. So anyway, no, Jake Daniels. No, I mean, I kind of that. We're getting into the weeds here with all this crazy other talk. I guess I just want to kind of go back and say, Totem, this is a huge deal, mostly because Coca-Cola is, I think it's fair to say that it's a family safe brand. Something that is really advertised along happiness and family. And so for them to hang their hat alongside the Overwatch League, that it really is kind of a really nice endorsement from the fact that this could be a family event. So I think it's actually completely counterintuitive to the question of who is going to be the first alcoholic sponsor. We may not get one, because of the Disney XD, because of a lot of the generation of kid that kind of grows up watching Overwatch League from the start. There's 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds out there that are going to be watching this league for 3 or 4 years and not even be close to drinking. And I don't know. I just think that there may be a conservative bit of a movement here with the Overwatch League and its advertisers, but that's fine with me because Coca-Cola's huge. It's not like it's hurting us right now, right? Okay, us. Like I'm a part of it. It's not hurting the league we love. I'll shut up now. But yeah, anyway.
Well, you're part of it as long as you share a Coke with someone.
Perfect. Paid for by Coca-Cola.
I'm seriously like, I probably will get another beer, but a Coke does sound good, so I might think about it.
I made such a huge deal about it to my roommate because he's a gamer too, and we used to do a show together, and we used to talk about like legitimizing esports, and this was like 5-6 years ago where it was like really niche and stuff like that. So I made this big deal to him. So he came home with like this old school Coca-Cola like glass bottle, and I'm like, "Where did you get that?" And like I look at it, and it's like all in like Spanish, and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know if I want to drink this," but then I'm like, soda's good forever. I'm thirsty. I drank it and I'm still here, so it couldn't have been that bad.
Well, there you go. There you have it. Coke is okay in Spider's book. Well, anyways, you did mention, we had some pretty other big news there. And the Overwatch League announced their television broadcast schedule ahead of the 2019 season. So when and where are we going to be seeing the Overwatch League on television this season? Well, every match, for starters, is going to be available on the ESPN app. And then Disney XD are going to be airing 3 matches per week, which includes the final match every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. along with the first 2 matches every Sunday, which starts at 12 p.m. Pacific time and 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, respectively. So ABC are going to be airing the semifinals and finals for stage 1 and 2, as well as the All-Star game. And as for the stage 3 finals, that is going to be broadcast on ESPN. Now, we still don't have any details in regards to the broadcast schedule for the homestand weekends, which, are stage 1, week 5, same with stage 2 and stage 3, or the season playoffs or the finals. That's expected to be announced at a later date. But I am happy to see that, yet again, we will be, at least at some point, be featured on the ESPN flagship channel, which is always great to see. And having that, connectivity all through the ESPN app is also a welcome change as well.
We made it. Like this is the one I was more excited for because we're on network TV. I mean, we're on ABC. So like I don't have cable. So I don't have ESPN. I don't have Disney XD. But now there is a possibility that I could turn my TV on and see Overwatch through my digital antenna. Because we, like normal people, use Netflix and Hulu at this point. But this I was excited for. Like I was excited for the Coca-Cola thing, don't get me wrong. But this I was like, okay, yeah, we're on network TV. And then the next thought hit my brain like, oh God, this, like, if I thought the Twitter backlash was bad last year, this year it's going to be just off the wall crazy. Like the amount of people like, lol, not a real sport. And, get back in your mom's basement and stuff like that. Which at this point I kind of just think is funny because there's almost more people that support it than don't support it. It's kind of like the future is now, old man, type of thing. So I am extremely pumped that it is getting more TV viewership. Now for like the hardcore fans, for people that are, watching us on Twitch and, watch the community countdown, it really doesn't mean anything. But for the people that are like, oh yeah, I've played Overwatch, there's a league. Oh, that's cool. So it just helps drive viewership. And the further we get into main network TV, the more Coca-Cola type sponsorships we're going to get. So this is just phenomenal news all around.
Yeah, and actually, Spider, I want to build on that excitement and say that to me, what stands out beyond, all the other, just being able to turn on ESPN2 and check out the finals, is that all the matches are going to be available in the ESPN app. So the company that I work for, and part of my job is I try to help sell some of the commercials that air in the ESPN app and things like that. So that's exciting to me, that if people are trying to reach, a certain demographic, trying to reach men or women who are into esports that, meet other certain requirements, I may be able to like help, kind of meet that inventory to a person. That's kind of cool that, Overwatch is going to be the conduit to get those two things together. So I don't know. I think that's kind of neat to me. And that was really exciting. But I mean, we knew this deal had got inked a while ago. We knew these networks were going to be tied to the Overwatch League. So this was really just a lot of the detail of how that was going to play out. And again, the most exciting things, are the ones that I called out, but the whole thing in general is very exciting and does bode well for the future.
Absolutely. So moving on, we do have another coach and tank change in the Overwatch League. And this one is coming out of the Florida Mayhem. So, Mayhem are really no strangers to making drastic changes. And, just like the Dragons, this is very last minute. So what is going on? Well, their main tank, S&T, who last year was under the ID of Awesome Guy, he is going to be moving to a player coach role for the team. And during this time, he is still going to be listed under the active Mayhem roster just as a substitute. So what does this mean for the Florida Mayhem? Well, luckily in their case, they actually do have another main tank on their roster, and they are going to turn to Swan to take over as the team's main tank. Now, outside of that, this is where the meme is definitely going to come in for Slambo 100%, is the fact that they have a new assistant coach, and it's and he had served as a head coach for Lucky Future Zenith, who had absolutely dominated Contenders China in the 2018 season, winning Season 1 and Season 2. So what does that mean for the Mayhem? Well, it means that they have and of course they have another person with a similar name also in that organization.
Yeah.
So yeah, they just need Little John next, and we'll be good.
That locker room has to be, I don't even know. Like they have to have designations or something like number 1 and number 2. But this, I mean, for anybody that's been following the offseason, this shouldn't really surprise you too much. I mean, they let go of their head coach. They replaced, they brought up a coach from their academy team, but obviously they needed more coaches. So why not just add some? Now, Awesome Guy, or S&T, making the transition took me off guard. Like, I really didn't expect that. But if that's what he wanted to do, if that's what they think he was good at, then more power to him. I'm always been a big advocate of players going into coaching roles, especially main tank players, because I think that's one of the hardest roles to coach, because it's also one of the most in-demand roles. So I think them having him will help the team. I still don't think they're that great of a team, though. Sorry. And maybe Bare Hands had his hands in this, because he just loves pulling Korean talent, so he's just gobbling up whatever he can find. So they're good pickups. I mean, when you win a Contenders season twice, obviously you're doing something right. So whether it's or yes, what they've got a phenomenal coaching staff.
Opposite of what we mentioned earlier at the top of the show, I thought that the changes to the Valiant made a huge impact. I just don't. I think to keep in line and be consistent with my point is that this roster, even though much upgraded and changed from Season 1, still does not stand out amongst the group of its peers the way that I feel like some people are giving them credit for. Maybe I'm just a little low on this team, but I don't feel like these changes are going to have as much of an impact as again that the other changes would to some of the top teams. But it can't necessarily hurt any worse. There wasn't a long way to go from where they ended up last season. So expectations, again, are, probably pretty fair. People don't expect a lot out of them. And every, season, guys, there's a team out there that just completely shows everyone up and says, even though you think we're nothing, we're something. And guys, this is 100% not that team, but I just wanted to share that thought. Anyway.
Well, I think if it's any team this year, it's probably Toronto, I would say.
I don't know. I think we can, have that discussion. I don't think Toronto's a bad call. But anyway, I don't know. Florida is just still a team that I'm pretty low on. I think I've ranked them like 19th on my power rankings, if I'm not mistaken. So,
well, spoilers. I know we're working on power rankings for YouTube, but there is a certain team named Florida Mayhem who are occupying the very bottom of the list.
Yeah. So again, I mean, not only do I think they're low, I just feel like these kind of changes aren't going to move the needle until you get yourself some potentially top tier talent at every role. But
what I will quickly note, though, here is the fact that they are getting a Korean coach on the coaching staff, not just from a player's perspective, but also just an actual coach. And this was one of our concerns with the Mayhem, was the fact that there was kind of like this divide with the teams. So in that regard, I am starting to feel a little bit better about the team, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily enough for them to really right the ship at this point. But it's a step in the right direction, and I'm really curious to see how this is going to help evolve them. Just because Lucky Future Zenith is one of those teams that during the offseason was heavily poached from, so I'm not really surprised to see someone go after their head coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think this will help in the long run, but I don't think it's going to make any difference short term. So I wouldn't expect any immediate results out of Florida. that being said, again, this is all like conjecture. Like, we don't know how scrims are going. We don't know how teams are actually playing. Like, we could all be so wrong in so many levels that next week we're going to come around and be like, boy, those first game, NYXL went 0-4, and San Francisco Shock just dominated everybody. Like, we don't know. So that's the exciting part about this week we're going to talk about like our match picks at the end of the week. And like, when I wrote mine, I was distinctly vague because I was like, I don't know. So I agree with you guys that I don't think this is enough to change my perception of Florida. Like, I feel like they're just not that great of a team compared to looking at like a pure talent by talent basis. But we saw where that got us last year with Boston. So, well, I'm excited, but I'm not optimistic for Florida.
Let's watch it burn.
Well, it does seem like with everything going on, it has left some time to leave for some debates, at least from Atlanta side this time, and not the Gladiators. Imagine that, someone else can try to top LA in something. Well, anyways, Atlanta's the latest team to kind of like troll everyone on social media after they basically just outright confused fans by releasing Dogman from Atlanta Academy. Now, Dogman would later go on to announce if he was LFT, whether it was for an Academy team or an Overwatch League team. And Atlanta would later go on to release a video explaining the Dogman situation. Now, they basically had like their player development coach come in, noting that, Dogman just wasn't the right fit for the team because he was memeing too much. And Dogman himself would appear later in the video before a graphic would pop up revealing that he had been promoted to the Atlanta Reign roster. Now, Dogman has been around the scene for a very long time. He won Contender Season 2 Trials when he was on last night's Leftovers, and he would then get picked up by ATL Academy alongside other components of LNL, and the team would finish second this past season in Contenders North America, fall into the eventual champions who are back-to-back-to-back champions in Fusion University. So for Atlanta, that gives them a third support on their support line. So they have Kodak, Mazza, and now Dogman. And I have to say, like, as someone that I followed for a very long time, you could like go back and read like some of the twit longers that Dogman had put out about kind of like his journey, and like you could definitely tell like how much he actually wanted to take that next step. So it just comes to show, like, if you put in the work, eventually, not for everyone, like, I'm not going to say, like, everyone's going to get in, but, if you put your...
You were, like, on a roll with this moment of, like, inspiration, and then you just cut it down like a tree in the forest. That was all. Okay, sorry.
If you put in the work, you can make it.
Well, not everyone. Let's keep it real here. Like, not you, dumb. Like, people that have talent. Yeah, okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
Either way, this does add some extra depth to Atlanta Reign. A lot of us are really high on Kodak following the World Cup. Where do you guys think the depth chart is going to fall now that they have 3 supports on this roster?
That's my big question. I mean, first of all, you left out the most important part of that message, where he's half dog, half man, and how do you deal with that? But I'm curious because Kodak and Dogman basically have the same hero pool, so they are 2 very scary support players, but you probably won't see them play together unless something seriously has changed behind the scenes that we don't know about, and we don't know how long Dogman's actually been practicing with Atlanta. So I'm curious to see how he shakes out for it. And I will have to say that last week we talked about bubble players in tier 2, and I just forgot about Dogman. Like, he definitely belonged on that list because, like you said, he's been part of the scene for so long. So any big Dogman fans, I'm sorry. So, but yeah, this is nothing but a great pickup for Atlanta.
Yeah, no, I just want to say I feel like this is a great pickup, and I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing that he may be third on the depth chart. He hasn't spent as much time in scrims and working together. He does have a lot of overlap with Kodak, but I certainly think that we're going to see Dogman get some playing time this first stage. We will kind of maybe they'll give him an opportunity to maybe specialize in a certain hero on a certain map or even a certain hero. So I'm, interested to kind of see what route that goes. But huge fan of Dogman, kind of a fellow podcaster at heart, someone who's always tried to stay connected to the community and to other players and bring a lot of insights and a lot of effort. And then I saw a Twitch clip of him offering to, or not offering, forgive me, saying that he would get a Korean bowl cut if he made it to the Overwatch League. So let's see that, and I'll be a happy camper.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did recently just have a haircut, so we might have to wait for it to grow out a little bit before that happens. But I do like the fact that he brought up the fact that he has done a podcast about competitive Overwatch. That is ultimate advantage. And I know they haven't had like a new episode in 2 months, but definitely go check it out when you have a chance. You can find it in the Overwatch Recall podcast directory. Go listen to some prior episodes. He's a really good guy, and definitely check it out. But for my sake, looking back at Contenders when he was on the ATL Academy, I just hope that he's going to be able to stay out of the doggone spawn, because we literally memed an episode title of Heroes Never Die off of one particular performance of his this past season. But anyways, so with the 2019 season started in just a couple of days, we do want to update you guys on Fantasy Overwatch League when it comes to our podcast network. So we are using the High Noon Fantasy, that is highnoon.gg, and OWL Network is going to be running 2 different fantasy leagues. We will have our Pick'em League returning, and this year we are also adding in Unlimited format. Now, in the Unlimited, you get to select 7 different players for your roster, and with that, you must select at least 2 damage players, 2 tank players, 2 support players, and then 1 captain player who can be any role. So it's a flex option for your team. We'll also be giving out prizes to the top 3 performers at the end of the season in both of these leagues. So to join, all you have to do is go to highnoon.gg, make sure that you get registered, look for us in the featured leagues, or you can click the league URLs, which we will have in our show notes. And just a quick update, at least in terms of Twitch streams this week, on Wednesday night, following our recording of Heroes Never Die, we are going to be streaming our host fantasy league featuring all of our network hosts. So it's going to be an 8-man league. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of trash talk involved, but we've been really close with highnoon.gg, especially last year when we basically had like the biggest prizes and like biggest like pool out of anyone in the pick'ems. So I'm looking forward to another successful year with them. So I hope to see everyone sign up, and I look forward to some more memery when it comes to our staff.
I don't.
I wonder why.
I'm in trouble this year. I don't know why. I just feel it. I'm in trouble. It's not going to be a good year.
See, I feel good about this season, which means that I am so screwed.
Well, who knows? Maybe with the influx of new talent, it's just going to throw everyone off, or just affect, maybe the people that are a little bit more confident after the first season. Who knows? It is really anyone's game, and these first couple of weeks are going to be like throwing darts, because you don't know what's actually going to land.
I might try that. Maybe I'll do that.
Just put like team logos on a dartboard, and wherever it hits, you'll be good.
Yeah, just I'll have the kids throw darts.
Okay.
Then I can blame it on them.
Perfect. Well, anyways, this is going to lead into our main discussion for tonight. So we're going to have 2 different discussions. First up, we're going to talk a little bit about what is going on right now, and that is the community countdown. And I'm going to air quote preseason. Okay. First of all, I know all of us are going to have very strong opinions about this, and we're probably all going to be on the same page. So let's start off with the timing aspect of the community countdown. The season starts on Thursday. Tonight is Monday. We're a couple of days away. And with it being this close to the start of the season, I don't know why they even bothered, to be honest. Obviously, you're not going to put players in a position where, hey, let's actually have everyone go out and plan their main roles and, tip, their hand a little bit. There's just no reason to do that. So we got to see like a lot of like flex support players switching over to main tank. We got to see like Jonak on Reinhardt. We got to see some DPS players playing Zenyatta. And yeah, that's okay, but it just got to the point where it was pretty evident that really no one was taking these matches that seriously outside of like maybe San Francisco Shock, who for the most part did have players play in primary roles in that case. But all in all, like, as a viewer, this is not what we really wanted. And it's very disheartening knowing that a lot of it just comes down to the fact that it was so close to the start of the season and opening week.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I have to take on that parent role. Like, I'm not upset, just disappointed, because that we've seen all. If you follow Twitter, if you follow the Reddit, like this argument has been going on since day one of the community countdown. Like, and it's funny because different people fall on different sides that I wouldn't expect of it. Like, if you're gonna have a pseudo preseason, you need to make sure the team's treated as such. And they're like, they made the argument like you made, like, oh, we don't want to give away strategies. We don't want to give away that. You're not giving away strategies by running a 2-2-2 comp with everybody on their primary role. There is no amount of coaching. There is no amount of like magic tomfoolery that you can pull off between now and Thursday that will say, oh boy, I really got an insight that Jonak is really good at support. Like, okay, cool. Like, the team should have took this a little more seriously, but like you said, it's kind of indicative of the timing. Like, they should have had this a month ago. They should have had this, earlier, where they could have generated hype. They could have took it a little more seriously without ruining strategies. I still don't buy that excuse. Like, I mean, honestly, the teams could have all ran goats, and you're not going to ruin a strategy even if you put everybody on their main roles and run goats. You're just like, okay, they ran goats, cool. Everybody in the pros know how goats work. They know what each player is supposed to do. The only difference is how that player actually executes it. Like,
yeah, just press W and hold M1.
Right. It's not going to give away anything else. So they should have had it much earlier. They should have made sure the teams were all on, the same page. It's just, like I said, it's just disappointing. When they switched it over to Mystery Heroes, like, the whole thing changed. The whole attitude changed, because at that point everybody knew what to expect. They knew it was going to be stupid. They knew it was going to be just dumb fun. So had they done that initially, it would have been a very different thing than A, having it this early, and B, labeling it scrims. Like, that was their other big mistake. That was a marketing mistake. They should have never said scrims, like, because as soon as people see scrims, they're like, oh man, this is serious business, which anybody who follows Overwatch knows scrims are not serious business. But I am just disappointed overall. Like, I was really pumped to watch the matches. I watched most of day one's matches, and by the end of it, I was sick of it. I watched the Dallas-London match on day 2, and that was it. Like, that's all I watched. And then I watched the event tonight. So, obviously I'm not watching what's going on now, but I watched, the previous. So I am sad. I will say that out of all of it, I really dislike London now, because Gesture did not recognize the Torb duel. Like, he was playing against Dallas, and I forget who Dallas. I think it was Zachary. I think Zachary pulled Torb in Mystery Heroes, and Gesture was on Torb. And Zachary pulled out the hammer, and Gesture just 2-tapped him and walked away. And I'm like, oh, dude, that's not right. And even the casters called him out, like, that's dirty. So London lost like 20 rankings in my book. Like, you can be champions, but man, you lost a moral victory today.
God, Spider, for hating it and not caring. You sure cared about that right there.
I cared about that moment. I take Torb duels very seriously.
What is there to say, Spider? You just came in hot right there. And I mean, aptly so. I'm not disagreeing. I think completely. I think that there are variations to 3-3. There are variations to which DPS that are chosen depending on the map, depending on the type of defense that you set up, depending on the tanks you have. But the variants, again, aren't anything that any team hasn't seen before. I don't know. I mean, I know it's Overwatch. It's the game of swapping and the game of all the diverse roles and characters. But at the pro level, it's a little bit more predictable to a certain extent, and I just tuned in with excitement. I was on my phone, in and out of the house, wherever I was. I was going to make sure that I was there to really watch it, and I felt myself not really being able to pay attention just because it just wasn't holding me. I mean, Shadowburn was on tour, but there was like a triple DPS comp to start us off, and I was like, is this a sample of what's to expect, for the rest of the night? And anyway, just really had let me down from a hype standpoint, but I don't know. I mean, it's the preseason though. It kind of feels spoiled to be a little bit upset and a little bit, weird about it, because ultimately, like, I'm looking forward to next week, next Thursday when the games are kicking off, and we're live. I would say next week. I mean, we're there 3 days. I mean, the season's upon us. So it seems also futile to be like, oh, this is not the preseason I wanted. It's like, it's a bonus. It's fun. Like the stuff going on tonight and the next few nights, very cool, very fun. I kind of wish we were watching some of the action going on right now, but I'll check those VODs tomorrow. And I don't know. I will have my complaints. I overall wasn't happy, but also like, let's appreciate what we have, and we'll forget about this silly willy-nilly preseason on Thursday the 14th. Let's go.
I will say that day one, I have to give Jane so much credit because he tried so hard to legitimize some of it. Like he was like, oh no, like, yeah, you think like 4 DPS is a meme, but like this is why they're running it. This is how you run it. Obviously, Torb isn't a staple, but these aren't super illegitimate strategies. Like he was trying so hard to like legitimize it, and you could tell like by the end of the stream that he was kind of like, okay, this is kind of stupid, like every team is doing this. And then like Nate Nazar tweeted out when they made the change to mystery heroes and stuff like that, and then he had a few subsequent tweets, and you could tell he wasn't happy, and that was like very telling that he was like, look, even when you have football preseason, you don't have Tom Brady kicking field goals. Like you put players in their positions and you show respect to the fans, and that was the part to me that I was like, damn right.
Damn.
And the other side of that too, though, is like if you go back, Nate himself didn't want to call it a preseason, so for him to like draw that to me was just like, yeah, okay, it was kind of like an eye roll moment. But for me, at the end of the day, if the Overwatch League knew that some other players were having issues getting their visas and they wouldn't be in LA, so we would have teams that weren't complete, don't go out of your way and label something as team scrims. Just say, we're gonna do the community countdown, we're gonna do the 1v1 stuff, we'll do capture the flag, all of that stuff, and we just won't have like that scrim portion. Like if it was like that, I don't think we'd be seeing as many complaints, but it's just the fact that Nancer is kind of being a little bit hypocritical in the sense that he's comparing something that wasn't even supposed to be labeled as a preseason to, that traditional sports preseason when it's really not that. But, it is what it is. Overwatch League opening week is here, so it's not like the end of the world, but it seems like the community at large and even the players themselves just have not been too happy with just the way that they kind of went about doing it. So only a couple more days, guys.
Almost there.
Almost.
I'd like to give a really loud woo, but that would wake up my daughter. But woo.
It was a weak woo night.
Yeah,
I'm gonna give you the weak woo, so I do not get beat by my wife later. Like there's an exchange here I'm making.
Yeah,
it's the right choice. That's why I haven't wooed. I mean, I got kids sleeping too.
Yeah, you guys making that awkward silence is people that get beat. That's all I'm saying. You guys know where my pain is. All right.
Well, if anything, it might get signed by the Cleveland Browns. You never know.
Oh just my God, Totem with the dunk right now. Wow, Totem. My wife texted me that during the show. All right, continue anyway.
Okay, so obviously it's opening week. It's Overwatch League 2019 Stage 1, Week 1. So we're look over at the schedule. The hosts are going to pick and preview their match of the week, and we'll let you know what our plans are for our Overwatch League viewing parties. So, Slambo, why don't you kick us off? What is happening on opening night of this 2019 season?
Opening night is frankly just the kickoff we needed. We have an amazing slate of games in front of us to kick us off on Valentine's Day, which thank goodness for all of my friends out there who don't have to do anything that day, like myself. Actually, we celebrate Valentine's Day on a later day, so I will be watching Overwatch League. So for some of us, though, very bad timing for the kickoff. Anyway, at 4 p.m. Pacific time, the season opener for Season 2, Stage 1, Week 1, is the Philadelphia Fusion versus the London Spitfire. I mean, you really can't ask for much more than two of the top teams for most estimations and power rankings against each other to set things off. And either way, I think we're going to have a close match there. I know I'm not giving any direct picks on that one, but really an exciting close matchup to kick us off. Next up, we have hopefully one of the rivalries that will continue to blossom throughout Season 2, and that's the New York Excelsior versus the Boston Uprising at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. I mean, I think New York is going to have a good and easy time with that one, but still a very much changed Boston roster, a very little changed but new faces on the New York Excelsior. Very exciting matchup to look forward to on day one. Then we get to my pick of the week, 7 p.m. Pacific. We have the Seoul Dynasty versus the Los Angeles Gladiators. I'm going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But to finish us off Thursday, we have the little bit limping into it, Shanghai Dragons versus the Hangzhou Spark at 8:30 p.m. Pacific time. Hangzhou have some of the best jerseys and best colors that we've seen here with the new expansion teams. And frankly, I just want to see those beautiful uniforms in action. So, Totem, is it okay if I talk about my game now, or are we going to do that a little bit afterwards?
We'll do that after. Let's go through the schedule first, and then we'll
making sure
back.
I didn't go too deep here because I'm super excited for mine. But we've got a ton of action on Friday. Spider, what's next?
All right, so Friday, February 15th, the day that I probably won't get to see because, like Slambo, we don't really do Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day, because if you do, you're crazy because everywhere is booked like crazy. But at 4 p.m., we have Toronto Defiant versus the Houston Outlaws, which should be a good game. Like I'm curious about both of these teams because these were both two very like question mark teams to see how they, ended up shaking out in the off season, and obviously a new team. 5:30 p.m. we have the Atlanta Reign opening their first match against the Florida Mayhem. I think that's going to be an easy match for the Reign, but again, I'm curious to see how both these teams do. Then at 7 p.m., we have my main team, the Dallas Fuel, versus the Shock, who everybody thinks is, like the best team in the league for some reason, which, I have hopes for, but I think Fuel is going to, wipe the ground with them. Sorry, Shock fans. And then finally, wrapping up the night, we have the Chengdu Hunters versus the Guangzhou Charge. So it's the Hunters versus the Gatorades. I don't know. We don't know either one of these teams, so it could go either way. So if you're really curious to see how some of these new teams look, Friday looks pretty stacked for at least giving you a first glimpse into some of these new expansion teams. What about Saturday?
All right, so Saturday we do have the earlier start time. So during the weekend, the games start at 12 p.m. Pacific time. So on Saturday, we kick things off with London Spitfire versus Paris Eternal. So a battle for Europe. We'll see whether or not this is actually going to be a rivalry or if it's going to be more like Boston, New York. At 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, we will have Washington Justice, going up against New York Excelsior. So that's going to be an extremely tough test for a new expansion team. At 3 p.m. Pacific time, we have my pick for match of the week, and that is the Los Angeles Valiant going up against the Hangzhou Spark. And then to finish off Saturday at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have quasi rematch of the grand finals of season 2 Contenders Korea when we have Vancouver Titans or Runaway going up against the worst half of
Dandruffera
of KDP of Shanghai Dragons. So, I was really hyped for this match going into the season, but now that Fearless is out, it definitely takes off some of the appeal of that match. So I'm not as hyped for it as I should be, knowing that most of the components are still there. It's just the teams aren't quite at the level that we would quite want them to be at. So there is that. But this would lead into our day 4, which is Sunday. So Slambo, why don't you let our viewers know what's happening there?
So to cap us off Sunday, to end off our action-packed week, we have, following the Saturday start time, the noon start time, 12 Pacific, Houston Outlaws versus Boston Uprising. Then at 1:30 p.m. Pacific, we have the Philadelphia Fusion versus the Atlanta Reign. A good buddy of mine, Spider, I think he has a little bit of an affinity for that game. Maybe he might be talking about that in just a little bit. At 3 p.m. Pacific, we do have this San Francisco Shock versus the LA Gladiators. Definitely a matchup that I feel like may go a little differently than we've seen in the past of that matchup. And we're going to see if some changes the Shock has made is going to put them up there with some of the top teams in the league. And then lastly, to finish us off, a gem of a game, possibly my second favorite game of the week, the Seoul Dynasty versus the Dallas Fuel. Frankly, an easy win for Seoul Dynasty. I'm looking forward to
it. Okay, so a side question here. So we saw when Dallas played Seoul last year, it was like the most viewed game. Are we expecting something similar, or are we going to see some drawback in this one?
No Siegel. So, no.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very different this year. I think it'll be a highly viewed game, but it doesn't have the story that it did last season. You don't have Siegel. You don't have Lunatic High versus Envious. You don't have all of that. Plus, you got to remember that was like the capstone of the first day of Overwatch League. Right. So I also don't expect like an 8-7 Junkertown map. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And before we get into our like match breakdowns, I want to get this off my chest. Like, I didn't pick a Fuel game because the Fuel game that I would have picked would have probably been Seoul versus Dallas. And I didn't want to talk about Seoul because I knew Slambo was going to pick Seoul at this point because Totem had already announced what he was going to pick. So I wanted to talk about one of the new teams. So I'm not disrespecting and I'm not, not burning blue. I wanted to talk about something different. Sorry.
Hey, that's very, you know what? Now I feel guilty. All right, moving on.
Nah.
All right, well, let's circle back and get back to our games of the week. So, Slambo, looking at your pick, you picked one of the more intriguing matches because we have Seoul Dynasty versus the LA Gladiators on Thursday night. And obviously, there's a lot of storylines to kind of follow in this. Obviously, we kind of got like the redemption arc for Fisher going up against his former team. So what are you expecting out of that matchup, or what is it about that match that has you so hyped for this one?
So, I mean, if you look at how these two teams ended last season, it was 25-15 versus 22-18. That is just a 3-game swing in between these teams. But the crazy part is that Seoul was 8th overall, but 3rd in the Pacific Division. And then the Gladiators were 4th overall, but 2nd in the Pacific Division. So even though these teams were just a few games apart, they ended up finishing eons apart when you look at the standings. So I feel like Seoul certainly kind of looks at LA like a team that held a title or held a position that they believe they should have had in the Pacific Division, much less against the overall standings. So I do feel like Seoul has kind of, the LA, in their sights to be a team that they want to overcome to show that they've made the right changes as an organization to be successful this year. So, Totem, I think you nailed it. In my head, I call this the quote unquote Fisher revenge game, even though I don't feel like Fisher as an individual shows a lot of animosity or angst necessarily. I just think that it's one of those things that there's psychology involved. When you left a team that you were a mainstay of, and you go play for another team, when you see your team again, there's just something inside you that wants to show them or prove it. I mean, I think that's pretty basic human nature at this point, but we're all looking forward to that narrative, and that's something that we're all going to be watching for. And either way it goes, it's going to be a storyline we're going to attach to and be like, Fisher did really well, or Fisher did not play very well, and that again will be something that will kind of be important to us for the next few weeks as we look at other matchups. I think that Fisher and Marvel have an opportunity here to right the ship with the tank lineup of Seoul. I feel like that was a bit of a hardship with Ryu Jae Hong having to flex. What did you call him? Ryu Jae Kong, to your point, Spider. And I mean, you still have Fleta and Munchkin here that have an opportunity. So we, in my head, this is probably really lame, and I'm so sorry for this ahead of time. But, Fleta is meta, and Munchkin needs to be better. I'm sorry. He just needs to just kind of step his game up and really fill out that DPS lineup. So it's a lot on Soul because obviously I'm a hashtag Soulmate. I'm a big Dynasty fan. But when you look at the Gladiators too, you got Shaz and Big Goose, still a premier support lineup. Now that we have a trio here with the addition of Reaper, you have really a little bit more depth in that support lineup, but I'm not sure you really want to break that up. The Gladiators, to fill the void of Fisher, have Roar, and I understand Roar's a great tank, a nice fill there, but is anyone Fisher except Fisher? So it's going to be kind of a little bit of a change for them. And Decay, huge pickup for the Gladiators. Love it. Think it's something that a lot of teams would have liked to have Decay on their roster, and that's something they have to be proud of that they picked up. And I think that he's going to make a great contribution right away. So all these things being said, like these are all the factors, these are all the lineup changes that make these teams completely different. And even though I'm listing out all these differences and all these major changes these teams went through in the offseason, I feel like these teams are still pretty close. I think the changes on both sides really have made both teams a better roster, even though I do feel like the main position that we've seen kind of a plus and minus in is that the Gladiators have lost a little bit in the tank category, where Soul has made up quite a bit for that tank category. So long-winded way of me breaking down these two teams, these two matchups, and saying that we're going to have a 3-2 match. I think Soul's going to squeak it out, but I feel like it's going to come down to one of those 99-99 situations on control. And we're going to definitely even possibly again see a tie here to have to go to an additional map. But I think 3-2 Soul pulls it out in a really amazing, a very memorable game from the first day of action for week 1.
Absolutely, and as Spider did bring up in the chat, we don't have to worry about Decay playing in this one because Decay currently is 17. He'll turn 18 in a couple of weeks. He's like one of 4 players that are signed to the Overwatch League that are 17 right now. I don't.
Come on, man, get older quicker. What are we doing?
Yeah,
My
seriously.
bad, folks.
Well, you'll have to wait like another 17 years for Sugar Free to get called up because, he was agent in reverse last season in Contenders North America. But absolutely, I'm really psyched for this match as well as a fellow soulmate. And for me, I'm just really curious to see, okay, so if this is mere GOATs compositions, I cannot wait to see the Munchkin Zarya back in full force again, because in that show match, when they faced the Guangzhou Charge, Munchkin was just cutting through everyone. So I'm really hoping he's going to be the person to kind of, put that extra aggression along with Fisher, assuming Fisher does play over Marvel, just on the forefront and really just put the pressure on the LA Gladiators. But that hydration Surefour duo is still scary, but just kind of like getting it back to what we were talking about, towards the start of the podcast and calling to Panthera for LA Gladiators, they definitely got the better of the deals when it comes to poaching the KDP players, because Decay and Roar really were the 1-2 punch of that team.
I I would love to add something to this, but you guys like broke it down so heavily that I I agree that Soul has a good chance to win this, but I picked the Gladiators. Sorry, I'm a fan of Surefour. What can I say? I'm sorry. So, plus, if I learned anything from last season's pick'ems, I have to pick very differently from you guys to even have a shot. Because if I make like minute adjustments, you guys beat the crap out of me. So I'm just gonna go like completely off the wall and try whatever I can. But
So that was basically like your stage 4 strategy, where you always went for the upset.
At stage 4 I had to because I was so far behind. If I didn't get any of the upsets, it wouldn't have mattered. Like if I picked what I thought was gonna win initially, I would have never caught up to you. So it's math, just math. As Slambo is so I don't know.
Listen, I mean,
I'm as bad at words as he is at math.
I don't know, man. Lately, my brain's degraded on every front, but certainly math is still scary.
Mm-hmm. I will note, though, that earlier tonight, Surefour did in fact beat Pine in an Ash 1v1. So maybe that momentum is going to help the Gladiators along in this match. But either way, just across the board, opening night is always a big night. And, out of the potential storylines for opening week, the whole Fisher versus LA Gladiators is definitely going to be one of the biggest. I just hope post game, if they do interview Fisher, we'll get a little bit of snarkiness and some trolling out of him just after everything that kind of transpired between him and the Gladiators. But one way or another, this match is going to be one of the more hyped ones for opening week. But moving on, we did have our second pick, which was a Saturday game, and this was my pick between the LA Valiant and the Hangzhou Spark, and it is at 3 p.m. Pacific time this Saturday. Okay, so in regards to this one, I primarily picked this because Valiant are one of those teams where, this was one of the best teams in their division last season, and yes, they lost soon, and there's been a lot of discussion on, well, how much is this exactly hurt the Valiant? How big of an asset was soon to this team's success? Now, we're still not 100% certain if the answer is going to be, okay, we're shifting Karif back to, flex DPS, primarily playing a hit scan. Then we'll move Iziaki off of bench duty, and he'll be playing the flex support for this team. We're still not 100% certain on that, but across the board, when you kind of look at the front line, you look at the back line, this is a very scary team. They have one of the better tank duos in the league, and regardless of who's going to be on the DPS line, this space should be opened up for them to be able to do work. Now, I just hope for the Valiant's sake that the answer isn't going to be KSF, just based off of what we have seen. Because Season 1, KSF only played 50 minutes or something. It was under an hour, and every time he was in, it was kind of wishy-washy. I remember when he was signed, and we're all just kind of really? This is the guy? And then he was kind of handcuffed to the Valiant sister team when they were doing 6-stack versus 6-stack with their team house. And then on the other side, we have the Hangzhou Spark, who, outside of all of the expansion teams, except maybe Vancouver, this has been really the most talked about team, not just because of the pink and blue colors, not just because of how fantastic Reaper looks in the skins, but because, well, you have Gushue, you have a lot of talent, and there's a lot of hype behind this team, and kind of since the get-go, I feel like the Spark have just become this own entity to the point where they're well surpassed where Shanghai was at in Season 1, despite how much of a meme the imperfect season was. So I'm looking forward to it. And I don't know if Gushue is going to see it play. That is the Chinese representation on this Chinese team. Or if they're going to stick to the tank duo that already has that pre-built synergy. But across the board, both of these teams are stacked. We have them pretty close to one another in all of our power rankings. So this one is really anyone's game.
Yeah, I think this could go either way. I think this is going to be a good match. It's going to give us a good insight how the Spark will play on stage, at least initially. It will show us basically how the Valiant have adapted without Soon, which I don't know if Bob is in chat, but I think Soon is overrated, so I just want to trigger him. Uh, but I am very excited for this match, and this was one of the matches that I thought I was going to cover, but Totem basically called this like dibs on this one right away. So he gets to talk about all the fun stuff. But I'm very excited for this. This is probably in my top 3 matches for the week. I am really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, sorry to jump in here late. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a match that I'm looking forward to. I don't know. I feel like it could be close, but I'm not going to reveal where I'm going to lean yet. But I don't know. It's definitely an exciting matchup, and I'm looking forward to it.
100%. And I do see Joe in chat saying that there was an interview somewhere where they asked Overwatch League players which team they think is scary, and a lot of them said Spark was. So, maybe those Scrimbucks are going to be paying off here momentarily. Only time is going to tell. But again, like when it comes to the Valiant, I feel like out of all of the teams that had a very good season 1, Valiant probably have like the most fluctuation when it comes to where the community has kind of ranked them. Because we've seen them as like as high as like rank 5 in some power rankings, as low as like 13 or 14. So there's like this huge middle ground with this team, and I don't think the loss of Soon is going to be as big of a blow, as opposed to like what a lot of the community is kind of feeling right now. So pretty interesting stuff out of their camp. And, with the new coaches being brought on, they'll have more tools to work with. And I just really hope that Karif is, in fact, going to be playing DPS. I don't like seeing such a talented player kind of like handcuffed to that support role. But who knows? Maybe they'll have some triple support or some silly shenanigans coming out. But I just don't want to see KSF is primarily what I'm getting at. Or Agile. I don't want to see Agilities revert to Agilites either. Like, he needs to have a little bit more consistency in this season to really help propel that DPS line.
All right. Well, I guess I will talk about the final match we are showcasing for the week, and I will get this out of the way right now. No more scuffed versions. You get the real deal.
Let's go, my dude.
There you go. I got it. We got it. So this will be Atlanta's second game. I didn't want to do their first game because their first game is against Season 1's second worst team, and their second game is against Season 1's second best team. So, boy, they are really hitting both ends of the spectrum in week 1. So Atlanta is being thrown to the fire. So I think Atlanta will be a very exciting team to watch because based on the talent on the team, specifically strong hit scan DPS, they will be one of the teams that might fall out of GOATs quick, if not right away. Like we've already seen some talk about changes in meta with going to more DPS heavy comps and stuff like that. And this is a team that can absolutely do that with their talent. But I don't want to discredit them because they do have a strong front line. They can run GOATs if they want to. It's just, you kind of get into the who's going to play Zarya, stuff like that. But on the flip side, you have Philadelphia, who is, they can flex to many different roles. We've seen like the peaks and the valleys. Like I've talked to death about Philly, and the main word that's going to come to mind is consistency. So they're going to have a rough first game. They're going to play against London, and we know London is going to bring their A game. London is a top tier team. They were Season 1 champions. We don't expect any of that to really have changed with the meta. We feel like London at this point has ironed out their problems. So I think this will really be Philadelphia's consistency check. Like they're going to go against London in their We'll get an idea of how well they're playing currently, but this is their consistency check. Can they play against a team that is technically a lower rung than the champions, which is basically everybody? And I think this will be a good test for them. So when you're looking at this match, obviously a lot of eyes are going to be on Defran, if he plays, what he plays, how he plays, like stuff like that. I don't want to go too much into Defran because I've talked to him. So I kind of want to shed the spotlight on Nalir. Nalir is a very talented DPS player that is getting kind of a lot of the spotlight taken away from him because of Dafran. While I think Dafran deserves some of that spotlight, obviously he's got all the stuff surrounding him because he is Dafran. You don't want to undersell Nalir. Nalir is a really good flex DPS. He specializes in hit scan, but he can flex to other roles, including Genji and Pharah. He is not to be underestimated. So his counterpart would be EQO. So like on Philadelphia, EQO has shown that he can play basically anything. Like last season, we saw him play like Diva, Pharah, Genji, Widow, Hanzo, Junkrat. Like I could keep naming things. So EQO will look to flex in this game as well. So I am excited for this. And then the whole Dogman getting thrown into the mix, like how is that going to play out? Like this is a very exciting match. And again, it comes down to Philadelphia's consistency. If we see like end of season 1 championship Philadelphia, I think Atlanta has a chance to win this because honestly, that Philadelphia looked pretty rough. But if we see like peak Philadelphia where Carpe is just taking heads, EQO is flexing onto anything and just eliminating anything that gets in front of him, this will be a very hard test for Atlanta. So it really comes down to how much faith you have in Philadelphia. It's not how you feel about Atlanta. It's not how you feel about individual players. It's how much faith in Philadelphia do you have to play consistently. And I think Atlanta has a good shot at this. And this is, I think this is going to go 5 maps. I hope Atlanta wins this because I would love to see them at least get a strong win for a top contender initially. But equally, I ranked Philadelphia lowest on my power ranking, so you will take that, how you will. But obviously, like I said, keep an eye on Nalir. Like I don't want Nalir's spotlight to go away because this is a DPS player that really deserves at least some of the spotlight with Dafran. So we'll see how this shakes out, but I am very excited for this match.
I just want to point out the fact that you brought up 5 maps, aka the Philadelphia Special, both exactly. At the Overwatch League level and the Contenders level. But yes, as Slambo mentioned in chat, he's got a horse to back behind in this one with Cox versus Comcast. So Slambo, I'm glad that you brought that up because that is definitely the case, and really like. This one is very intriguing to me. Both of these teams have like these powerhouse DPS, potential. But Carpe and EQO just brought this level of consistency when it comes to the DPS lines that really, I'm not gonna say like they far like outplayed basically every opposition that they came across because that wasn't quite the case. But Carpe throughout the season was one of the most consistent players, and when we got towards the end of the season, you start to gotta see like that wear and tear in regards to Carpe's play. And a lot of that was just due to the fact that Philadelphia was not able to close out these series. So for me this season, a lot of the talk behind Fusion is just going to boil down to, are they going to be able to walk away from more of these series, maybe a little bit unscathed, or are we going to see more of the grit and extended series going Map 5s deep a lot of the times, so then we just see them kind of crumble when all the chips are pushed in? I don't know, but I'm really happy to see the Fusion again, and I know a lot of us are feeling pretty good about them, even, with, some of the shifts being moving around a little bit of them kind of like losing Hotba to the charge. But Simba, what are your thoughts on this particular match?
No, I think you guys pretty much wrapped up where I'm at with it. I do think that it's going to be a bit of a grittier match, but the only thing I can really add, or the only thing that I really think might tip the scales in one way or the other, is the Philadelphia's experience I mean, I know it's not just because they're a new team to the league, they're an expansion team, but the roster just doesn't have a ton of experience at that level on the big stage. And I feel like this early on, that's okay and that's to be expected. So I don't write Atlanta off if things don't necessarily go the perfect direction right away. They're still in a little bit of a learning process, but I feel like it's a strong organization, ran by some very smart people. I do trust Steffi to make sure the team keeps their eyes on whatever that prize is. They might not even be looking at the championship. They may just be a team that wants to give some good teams some tough matches, and I think they're in a position to do that. And this is a team that they could very well scrap with, but I don't know if it'll be as close as maybe you guys are saying, but I do feel like there will be fights and maps where we'll see the potential of Atlanta. But overall, this will pretty much end up going the way of the Fusion. And that's okay. So we'll see. This matchup happens way later, stage 4. Talk to me again. I think it'll be a different answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, experience on stage was the one X factor that I definitely considered. And I think that you're right. I think that can play a major role in it if Atlanta gets in its own head. I just hope that they don't. But
sure, they don't have a player who epitomizes the in your own head play or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm rooting for Atlanta because I am rooting for Defran.
Yeah.
The stuff has come out about all the stuff he did, and yes, he did a lot of stuff that was wrong, but a lot more context is coming out, and you kind of understand that he was burnt out and stuff. And I'm not apologizing for him. Everything he did was absolutely wrong, and he should have been punished for it. But I hope, and I said this before, I hope if he has the support structure, he can flourish because he is an immensely talented player. He is one of those players that every other player is boy, I wish I had aim like Defran. That is stuff that other hit scan players have said. So if you go back and look at, I think it was AKM that talks about when he plays against Defran. AKM's dude, he is insane. And AKM was well known as one of the best soldier players in the world. For him to give that level of praise to another soldier player just has to, show you that he is an immensely talented player. He does have problems, and he needs a strong support structure. I hope they can give that to him because I hope he can, flourish under them. But also, I kind of hedged my bets because I wanted to focus on the other DPS because there is a possibility that other DPS may be their main starting DPS if things do go south. So I am not oblivious to the Defran situation, even though I am a fan of a fan of Defran. Boy, these F words are starting to get hard.
You're a Defran.
Defran, yeah, exactly. So
I thought the F word was Fisher, though.
I'm not allowed to say that word.
By the way, that was in the context of that one conversation in the top word. You can say his name. All right. Anyway,
no, I'm not allowed to say the F word. That's also why I didn't pick a Soul match because it's going to be really hard to talk about Soul and not say.
Right.
So
I like it.
At the end of the day, I'm hyped for the season to get started. So I will do a Dallas match next week for anyone wondering.
Wow.
No bias there. Well, with that being said, last season we held, a couple of viewing parties where, every now and then we would have people in our Discord voice chat just talking with the community as games are going on. We'll also have a live game chat in regards to the tech channels. And this year we're planning on doing more of that. So we're probably going to kind of fluctuate when exactly these are going on. But for now, the plan is on opening day. So Thursday, February 14th, we'll be hanging out in Discord. We'll be in the voice chat. So if you guys want to hang out with some of our community members, we will be there pretty much throughout the night. And then kind of as the season progresses, we'll maybe look at featuring certain matches that we're going to be in there, or just switching up the day, because I know not everyone is going to be able to make it every Thursday or things like that. So kind of stay tuned on our Twitter feed to kind of find out what exactly we're doing for the week, and we'll kind of expand on that as the season goes along. But 100% be sure to join our fantasy leagues. we'll have some awesome prizes again. But for now, there's just so much to look forward to. Open week is finally here. It's time to put up or shut up for some of these teams, and I cannot wait. And, week 1 is pretty stacked across the board. So outside of that, guys, are there any other sort of storylines in any of these other matches that you maybe are keeping an eye on?
The Dallas matches. I mean, I'm going to watch them.
No, I mean, there's so many. I just feel like anytime there's an expansion team playing, I want to watch that match so bad. And even there's just so many teams that have gone through so many changes, any legacy teams. I don't know. There's really, to be honest with you, the whole week looks interesting. Like, I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I promise you that will change. I promise you by, stage 4, there will be a little bit of selective watching happening. I will be skipping some matches, but right now everything feels fresh, new, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, for me, I will say with Color Hex being suspended for, a couple of games, I don't know where exactly that's going to leave Boston Uprising, because they don't have a backup DPS player. So that's definitely going to be something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. And maybe if we are seeing triple tank, triple support, well, it really won't matter for Head, but it is definitely something to keep an eye on. And just the fact that, if they have the loss of Striker to the San Francisco Shock, that is an absolutely huge blow to that team. And yes, in Season 1, a lot of community, us included, were pretty down on Boston, from the get-go. But they were also the only team to have a perfect group stage. I should correct myself. They didn't have, a perfect, playoff during that stage, because they did lose. But when it came to the dive meta, they were really at the forefront of the league. And for them to have contenders level DPS being their main DPS, that's a lot of unproven talent at a pretty key position. So I really just want to see where exactly that level of DPS is going to compare to the rest of the field, because they really haven't had as many opportunities, especially Color Hex, who is coming out of Contenders Australia. So, they also have Olamon as well on the main support role as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on. So really, really curious about that team in particular, even if it is, a team that not everyone has lofty expectations for.
That's good. Yeah.
Let's go, my dude.
There we go. I had to get one more in there. I'm ready
that sums it up right there.
I'm ready. Let's start this noise.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, one of the best things to do is to leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for ways to improve the show. If you're looking for additional Overwatch content, be sure to check out Overwatch Recall. There you can find a listing of Overwatch, Overwatch League, Path to Pro, Fantasy Overwatch League podcasts over on our website at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. And of course, every Sunday night, we release the episodic listings of all the podcast episodes out there. And of course, there are other ways how you can support us. So, Spider, why don't you plug our Patreon?
Sure thing. You can find our Patreon at patreon.com/OWL network. We have multiple Patreon tiers starting at just $1 a month. It helps us keep the lights on and pull Slambo out of the audio abyss, which I'm sure you're happy to see him again. But seriously, anything, any support you show the show, we are just happy to have it. Totem, I understand we have a new Patreon member this week, so you want to give us the deets?
Sure. Yeah, we actually had a new patron earlier today, and that is Gabby Darko, who pledged, I think it was early this afternoon. So, Gabby, thank you so much for your continued support on helping our network grow. And, we're up to 4 podcasts now. Who knows what the future holds? But any additional support people give, we are always grateful for. And, at some point, we are probably going to plan on doing a sort of Patreon giveaway. So stay tuned for more details on that in the coming weeks or months ahead. But Slambo, as a network, we do have a various number of ways where our listeners can get a hold of us. So why don't you let them know how they can do that?
Boy, howdy doey. If you'd like to send us an email, go ahead and write that to contact@owlnshow.com. Our website is www.owlnshow.com as well. Our Twitter is @OWLNshow. Our YouTube is at youtube.com/C/Overwatch League Network. Our Discord is discord.me/OWLNshow. And also our Twitch is twitch.tv/OWLNshow. A reminder that we are a Twitch affiliate. So make sure you show support by hitting that subscribe button to our channel to earn our nice network emoticon. And our podcast network, we're always streaming. We've got the Overwatch League Network, the show you're listening to right now, Mondays live at 7 p.m. Pacific. We have the Overwatch League by the Numbers, airing Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. Heroes Never Die, that's our variety Overwatch show. That's on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And our host streams, usually Thursdays and Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. It's Totem and Spider kind of splitting those duties, or whomever else will take the mantle. And also a new one to the list is our Patreon, patreon.com/OWLN or LWOL. Oh my God, OWL Network. Boy, is that a change for me. I'm going to say it again, patreon.com/OWL Network. So check out our Patreon page there for further support. And guys, tiers start at just $1. Anything helps. We appreciate it, and we love you. See, I added the love you in there, Totem. You didn't have that written down, but we love you guys.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, I do want to thank you again for hanging out with us tonight for our live show on Twitch. Again, you've been listening to Overwatch League Network. This has been episode number 67. And of course, we got 2 more podcast episodes this week, both Tuesday and Wednesday. We hope to see you guys there. And if not, stop by our Discord Thursday night for opening day of the 2019 season. And join the fantasy leagues, because of course there is a ton of trash talk and bragging rights involved in all of that. See how you stack up against our network hosts, all 7 of us, as our network continues to grow. But for now, guys, we hope you have a good night, and we'll see you next time. Take care.